Hey guys, welcome back to DCEU. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be discussing how Warner Brothers could potentially fix their DC cinematic universe going forward. Okay, so recently, as you may have well heard, there's been lots of controversy around the DCEU. Some of these things that cause the controversy include the ongoing casting of Amber Heard in Aquaman titles, or any other DC titles in that matter, Ezra Miller and the countless criminal actions that they have been accused of, and their ongoing casting as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, the cancellation of Batgirl and other DC titles, and a general lack of structure going forward. Now, a video from Variant Comics, linked in the description, proposed that one solution to these various issues would be to reboot the DCEU, similarly to what has been done in the comics several times already. And as such, I wanted to construct a possible structure of what the DCEU could look like over the next few years, taking inspiration from places such as the MCU and the DC universe over at the CW, known as the Arrowverse, excluding the past few years, where it's been less than ideal. But that could make for a whole nother video, so I'm not going to cover it here. So the MCU is split into numerous sagas, and then more specifically, phases. Each saga ends with a big crossover event, such as Infinity War and Endgame, and soon to come Secret Wars and the Kang Dynasty. And then each phase, at least through the Infinity Saga, would end with a team-up movie, that being an Avengers movie in this case. So taking those ideas, I could construct the DCEU in a similar way. Additionally, the MCU uses a variety of TV shows and movies to explore their material, whether it be animated or live action, so this could also work to our advantage. As for the Arrowverse, it has less structure than the MCU, however, they have focused more into the multiverse side of things, at least as of recording this. The multiverse was explored through the TV series The Flash, and was then used to tie in Supergirl into the wider universe. Through using the multiverse, they were able to have crossover events similar to the MCU, where there was a larger threat that the team would focus on over the course of a few episodes. Then after that, each character would go focus on their own problems in their own home cities. Taking this idea of using the multiverse to bring characters together can work to our advantage here if we want to have a crisis event in the DCEU structure. Additionally, I believe the yearly crossovers would be a good thing to implement also. Anyway, now let's take these ideas to build up a structure for the DCEU. So first things first, we need to reboot the current universe. And as mentioned by Variant Comics, a good way to do this would be through a Flashpoint movie. And since the Flash movie is already coming out next year, that could easily fit in. So that is the start of Saga 1, Phase 1. Also, in case you don't know what Flashpoint is, it's a comic series in which Barry Allen travelled back in time to save his mother from being killed, but in doing so screwed up the whole timeline, then attempted to fix things, but it didn't exactly go back to the way it was, and a bunch of changes happened, serving as the reboot for the DC Comics. After a reboot, I think it would be good to introduce the Holy Trinity of the DC Universe, that being Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Firstly, I think introducing Superman would be good considering we haven't gotten a live-action Superman movie since 2013 when Man of Steel came out. Since Flashpoint would have occurred before this, the possibility of recasting for any of the characters could be done with an easy explanation, and that goes for all the other movies as well. The story could focus on Superman in his early years, just after revealing himself to the world, kind of like how the Batman focused on his first year as Batman. Anyway, this movie would focus on Superman's relationship with Lois, or rather Clark's relationship, or possibly even both. Flashbacks to his time in Smallville as a child would be implemented throughout, and of course there would be a main villain of the movie. And that could be any number of characters such as Lex Luthor, General Zod, and so on. However, I think the best choice here would be Lex, as it would set up some stuff later on in this first phase. But I'll get to that later on. A post-credit scene of Lex in prison talking to a mysterious character would be included here, to again allude to that larger threat. And of course, Lex being in prison means Superman won here. But that's obvious considering it's a comic book movie, so yeah. Next would be a Batman movie, and this story would be set in a similar time to the Superman movie, with Bruce only just have started out as Batman. However, maybe he could be a few years into his career as Batman, just to implement some rivalry between Bruce and Clark later on in their eventual team-up. The villain of this movie would be Joker, as I'm sure came as no surprise to anyone. Normally, I would say to leave this for a sequel, but to set up something larger down the track, having Joker introduced here would be good. Selena Kyle as Catwoman could also be introduced in this movie, and the League of Assassins alluded to throughout. For a post-credit scene, could be either the Flying Graysons themselves, or a poster saying that they have a show coming soon to Gotham, obviously setting up Dick Grayson as Robin for the sequel. Also for a mid-credit scene, we could also allude to Harley Quinn, or the other way around, with the Graysons as mid-credit and Harley Quinn as the post-credit. Doesn't really matter. And for the final member of the Trinity is Wonder Woman. This movie would similarly focus on an early time since Diana had left Themyscira. The villain of this movie would preferably be Cheetah. However, since Wonder Woman 1984 just included her as a villain, I think it would be better to include someone like Silver Swan, or any member of a rogues gallery really, but I just think Silver Swan would be cool to see in live action. A post-credit scene would be included alluding to Cheetah, and a mid-credit scene would show Donna Troy, obviously alluding to Wonder Woman, and the Cheetah scene alluding to the larger threat as was mentioned before. So that now brings us to 4 movies in the first phase of this new DCEU, that being The Flash, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Now, to close out phase 1 of the new DCEU would be a team-up movie, that being a Justice League movie. And as some of you may have already guessed by now, the villain, or rather villains, of this movie would be the Legion of Doom. The post-credit scene from the previous 3 movies would have alluded to the formation of this team. The mysterious man Luthor was talking to in prison being Vandal Savage. Since Joker and Batman have already had a rivalry at this point, Joker would join in too. And Cheetah alluded to would also be included. As for the rest of the team, there would be Captain Cold, Sinestro, and Black Manta. And as you may have guessed from each of the villains, the Justice League lineup of this movie would include Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman. This movie would focus on the team finding out about the Legion getting together and then doing so similarly, getting together all the heroes. They would eventually go on to defeat the Legion of Doom. However, Vandal Savage, being immortal, could still be alive for a possible threat later on down the track. A post-credit scene in this movie would allude to the larger threat for this saga, that being Darkseid. And as mentioned, that would wrap up phase 1 of this brand new DCEU. And as such, that wraps up this video. If you did enjoy it and want to see a part 2 with the rest of the first saga, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. And to stay up to date on everything DC and more, be sure to check out my Twitter account. But until next time, this has been Chris, and I'll be seeing ya.